Dr. Lori, and I'm going to tell you a list of the most valuable Hummel figurines. Yes, valuable. That's right. I'm going to show you a list of the most valuable ones. I'm also going to show you a list of how to spot a valuable Hummel figurine in the wild if you have tables full of them and you don't know what to look for. And I'm also going to show you how to spot the fakes. Hummel figurines were first produced by the Goebel company. I know they're Goebel. They're made by Goebel, not by Hummel. All of you are going to go, oh, they're not really Hummel. They're based on drawings by a nun named Sister Maria Hummel. And they started producing them, the Goebel factory started producing them in 1935. They continue, of course. They become very, very popular and collectible, and they are valuable. Here's a list of the most valuable ones that you want to look for. First of all, you want to look for the Merry Wanderer. The Merry Wanderer is one of the most popular and most collectible of the Hummel figurines. Now, they're earthenware ceramic, they're hand-painted figurines, and they're based on these drawings of Sister Maria and Hummel. There's a couple of things that are very specific about the Merry Wanderer and why he's important. He's important because, and this is why he's important, is why he's valuable. He's important because basically he creates this model that they work off of, and they make other Hummel figurines based on him, or on this one. He's a striding figure. He's holding a little carpet bag, and he's got an umbrella over his shoulder. That idea of basically having that particular type of striding figure is the model for others. So there are variations on it. The Merry Wanderer, a small size Merry Wanderer, only about 6 inches tall, value $350. Now, there are certain attributes that have to be indicated to get that value. It has to do with marks, it has to do with age, it has to do with condition. But again, those factors are important, but you can see that a Merry Wanderer figurine by Hummel is going to be very collectible. The variations, not as collectible, not as valuable either. Like the variation, this one, which is the boy with the dog. It looks exactly like the same construction and design as the Merry Wanderer, but again, not as valuable. So you have to know which one you're looking for. Second on my list of the most valuable Hummel figurines is the Apple Tree Boy and the Apple Tree Girl. I have an Apple Tree Boy here on the table, and the Apple Tree Boy here on the table, it's a very good example of what you're looking for. They're a pair, they can be sold separately, but they're a pair of Hummel figurines, and they relate to this idea of little boys and little girls climbing trees and being up in apple trees. The design elements are very important, and the way that the actual tree comes out from the base is important for value too. The Apple Tree Boy and the Apple Tree Girl are very desirable. Value on the pair, about $500 for the pair. That's right. Remember, marks are going to be important. The age is going to be important, as well as the condition. It matters, and that will impact the value. But the Apple Tree Boy design is very interesting. First of all, you're going to have a couple of apples with some leaves. You're going to notice that it's a very, very vertical one, where the Apple Tree Girl is much more horizontal. She's actually looking over one shoulder, and you see her from the back as if she's been surprised by someone while she's sitting up in a tree. They're oftentimes together. Large-scale ones are very desirable and extremely valuable. Number 3 on my list of the most valuable Hummel figurines is, in fact, Ring Around the Rosie. Ring Around the Rosie is a very, very popular Hummel figurine, and this figurine features 4 figures on the same base. This becomes a very important concept with Hummel figurines. And Ring Around the Rosie has 4 girls holding hands, doing the dance Ring Around the Rosie on the same base. There are variations of it too. For example, Ring Around the Rosie can command between $1,250 and $5,000 for large-scale examples, and small-scale examples can bring into the several hundreds of dollars, even up to about $1,000 for one Hummel figurine of Ring Around the Rosie. Ring Around the Rosie also has variations. What does that mean? Well, there are other Hummel figurines that have little girls dancing. Sometimes they're not 4 girls like Ring Around the Rosie, but in fact, in this example of the spring dance, you can actually see that there are 2 girls, they're dancing in the same manner. So they come with a theme with the Goebel company. For Hummel, of course, figurines, they have these themes and they replicate the theme. So Ring Around the Rosie is one that you should be looking for. So the next on my list is Adventure Bound. Adventure Bound shows these small figures, these small little children actually going out and venturing out into the world. They've got a lantern, they've got a spear, and they're ready to go. So these kinds of things where you have 6 particular characters on the same base, they're doing something active, and they're basically moving forward. This is important for Hummel as well. So you see it. They're very, very cute, and they're doing something that seems adult. Anytime you see those types of things, you know there's going to be value. Adventure Bound is one of the Hummel figurines on my list of the most valuable that you should look for. What are people paying for them? $2,000 for this example. Larger scale example, $2,000. And this is what people are really paying. I did an appraisal last week, and someone actually paid that much, a sales record, which is based on actual sales, what people actually pay for a particular collectible. And everybody else is running around going, oh, Hummel figurines are not worth anything. Specific ones are worth something, and they're worth a lot, but they have to have specific characteristics. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. My next list of the most valuable Hummel figurines is, in fact, the photographer. The photographer is a great one, and one that also has that same concept of pretty as a picture, and basically that idea, that concept of having multiple figures with another small childlike figure doing something, in this case taking the picture of his friends with their toys and their dogs. So this is another Hummel figurine that a lot of people are looking for specifically. Why is this important? The concept of limited editions is also something that's important for this. There are only 2,500 of these ever made worldwide. So when you have a small or limited edition number, like in this particular Hummel figurine, you have, of course, that idea that the value is going to be higher. Value on this, about $2,500 to about $3,500. So that's important for those. That's the list of the Hummel figurines. But say you don't have those 5 Hummel figurines that are the most valuable. You don't have Ring Around the Rosie. You don't have the Spring Dance. You don't have, Adventure Bound. You don't have an Apple Tree Boy and an Apple Tree Girl. And you're saying, but I've got this table full, or I'm looking at them at a flea market or at a thrift store, and I don't know which ones to pick. So if you don't know which Hummel figurines are valuable, I'm going to show you the traits that you need to find in Hummel figurines so you can identify the valuable ones. First, age. Age is very important, and it's based on the marks. Second, marks. Marks are very important because there are 20 different types of marks on Hummel figurines since 1935 when they started to produce them. And in fact, those marks will tell you a lot about value. Size. Size is going to be extremely important when it comes to Hummel figurines. The bigger ones are more complex. They're more difficult to, of course, produce. And also it takes a lot more in the artistry. Design and construction of the design. Construction, how they're actually made, and then also how they're designed. There's actually a color palette that the Goebel company remained dedicated to based on Sister Hummel's directions. She had certain colors that they wanted used, and those were the colors that were used for Hummel figurines. So let's get started with marks. First of all, there's an embossed mark on the bottom of a Hummel figurine. So for example, on the bottom of this Hummel figurine, you can see actually the embossed M.I. Hummel mark for Maria I. Hummel. So every single real, true, authentic Hummel figurine has that mark. Then they have marks on the underside of the actual figurine, and those marks relate to the time period that the pieces were made. So many of you know them as the V&B mark or the TMK mark, and there's 1, 2, 3, all the way through 20. Some of them relate to Goebel, some of them say West Germany, some of them don't. So that's going to be important for value. The next thing you want to look for after the marks is age, which goes hand in hand. The earlier pieces have a very strong collecting category. A lot of people are looking for the earlier pieces, those pieces that date from 1935, right, all the way into about 1950. After World War II, let's call it circa 1950, you're going to see, of course, a change in those marks again. But the marks are not the only thing. All of you are mark happy. I know you all love, look, tell me the mark. Let me see the mark. I want to know the mark. I want you to look at the construction and the design. Bigger is better, oversized pieces. Some Hummel figurines are 36 inches tall. Some of them are very, very large, like these umbrella boy and umbrella girl that you can see here. These are very large. These pieces are, in fact, examples of the 18-inch size, but in fact they make them even bigger than this, almost child life size. So that's one of the things you want to look for. This Madonna, for example, sold for $750, and it's relatively tall, the Madonna and Child. This one might be painted in blue, and this one happens to be a white glazed example, but size will be important too. Construction is really important, as well as the design of the pieces. So for example, the construction of these pieces, when you're looking at any Hummel figurine, I want you to look for more than one figure or more than one element on the same base. It's why Ring Around the Rosie is so valuable. Well, there's 4 figures on that base, and it's on one base. So if you see a piece and you say, oh, okay, I get it, there's more figures on this base, and that makes it more difficult to construct in the production of it in the porcelain factory. It's earthenware ceramic, however, but in the earthenware ceramic in the kilns, it's also important because now you have more painting to do, and you have to make sure there's a balance of the figures, so that if you make something too top heavy, or you make something, of course, that wants to go off into one side of the figurine or another side of the figurine. So that's the other thing that you want to think about. Multiple figures on one base. That's a good point. Realism. Does it really look like this little girl is kissing her doll? Well, yeah, it does. And that's one of the things that is characteristic of course, Hummel figurines. Not all other figurines are able to do that. So it's not only in the sculpting, but it's also in the decoration or the painting when they actually do the design work. So you want to look at that. You also want to look for indicators like little small details. Minute details, little paintings of a little leaf on an apple, for example. Details like having the drummer boy in this particular fife and drum corps, these 2 figures on one base. He has a little tie that you can see around his neck. It looks like it's moving in the wind. These are the kinds of details that make Hummel figurines so desirable, collectible, and valuable. So don't poo-poo them, because you know what? They're out there and they're valuable. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is, of course, spotting a fake. You know, they're not going to make fakes of stuff that isn't valuable, isn't collectible, isn't popular, right? They don't make fakes of, like, you know, artwork that I make, right? So they're making Hummel figurines, and they're making fakes and replicating fakes because of their value, because of their collectability. So Japanese knockoffs particularly are very common, as well as other manufacturers throughout Europe trying to mimic Hummel figurines and then sell them at a lower price. How do you tell? Look at the eyes. The eyes on Hummel figurines typically have a glaze, a light glaze, to make the eyes almost look watery. They look like they actually sparkle because there is actually a glaze over them. You won't see that in a knockoff. You also will see the difference in the eyes and the difference in the painting. There's not as much details on most of the figurines that are knockoffs. Here's a knockoff right here on my table. This particular one doesn't have the same kind of attention to detail in the eyes, nor does it have the same kind of elements that you're typically going to see. It also lacks the very simplest thing. It lacks the M.I. Hummel embossed signature. So you can tell a Hummel knockoff pretty easily if you start to compare and contrast them. But in this video, I wanted you to learn about what was really valuable when it came to Hummel figurines. And I want you to have that list, those lists that will help you identify Hummel figurines and know which specific ones are most valuable. I'm Dr. Lori. I'll see you next time.